Hi, my name is Sherry Ann Simpson, and a lot of you know me, some of you don't know me. I've been asked by many people recently to assist them in setting up their online classes. Let me tell you a little bit about my background, first of all. I have a PhD in a very unusual subject matter, which is educational innovation. And that is essentially moving educators from the classroom into an online environment, or integrating more technology really just into their classroom environment, but primarily also for hybrid teaching. So that is something that about 22 years ago we started to do when I was teaching at Northwestern University, which is where a lot of you have met me who are watching this. A lot of my former colleagues have asked me, they finally understand what my PhD is in, and they've been asking me to help. And I'm really glad to help, because it was something that was kind of a little bit forward thinking when I did it about 12 years ago. And I'm just so grateful now that I have the opportunity to share some of my knowledge with you. I know a lot of you are being incredibly overwhelmed and bombarded really with resources for teaching online. I'm a little bit amazed. I still teach as well. My own university has sent out copious amounts of materials, and all really wonderful, and everyone trying to be super helpful. But I think it's really just really a simpler thing if someone can reduce it for you into a short webinar. So I'm going to try to do that for you right now. I know some of you also know me through my products that I've developed, which are EduNovela.com. And this will also help you understand a little bit how to set up your online classes for use for any kind of tool, no matter what you teach, whether you're a chemistry professor or a high school math teacher. I really hope that this will be helpful for you. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my Canvas site. And that way, I think that it'll give you a little bit of an overview as well as to how you might want to set up your online classes. I think that one of the most basic and fundamental things is to think about the best practices for online learning. There are two critical pieces. It doesn't matter if you are like me, you teach graduate students, or if you teach high school or you teach middle school. And by the way, I've taught everything from K through 20. So I am currently teaching grad students, as I said. So I really understand that there are a variety of levels that you might be teaching if you're watching this. I'm going to focus primarily on high school and college and grad school, because that's really what I know best. But I did want to share a few things with you before I take you really into show you my Canvas site and tell you how to set up hybrid or online classes, even if they're purely online. I really want to make this as succinct for you as possible. So one thing that I learned very early on, making an analogy for your teachers or even for you, I think should be helpful, especially for those of you who are in leadership positions. It's really important that you not just dump a lot of resources on your teachers or your professors, that you really try to help them understand what it is, like what's the big picture of what they're doing. And something that really helped me early on was when one of my professors likened online teaching to cooking. And since then, I've really taken his analogy and I've done a lot with it, but I love to cook as well. So I'm just going to explain to you basically what you're doing. So you can be cooking at home in your kitchen, or you can be cooking when you go camping. Of course, I live in California. Lots of people camp. I don't camp, don't tell anyone, but I do think this analogy works for a lot of people. So you can be cooking in your kitchen, and you can have all the best tools in front of you, and you can have a wonderful recipe and all of your delicious ingredients. And then, you know, you have your outcome, which is your wonderful meal that is your favorite recipe and you love to make for your family and friends. So what you're doing when you're teaching online, I liken that more to kind of campfire cooking. You still have your tools. They're different tools, or they're slightly different tools. They're tools that might replicate what you have at home in certain ways. They might replicate a bit of the experience, but they're not going to be exactly the same. And you still have the same ingredients, and you might still have the outcome of what you want your students to get to, but you just get to it in a very different way. So that's kind of what I'm going to show you right now is don't think of your online teaching as in any way, shape, or form an exact replica of what you're doing in the classroom. If you try to think about that, it's not going to work. And it's probably what you did in the spring when you had to rush to teach online, and if you had never taught online before. I've thankfully taught online 8 times, mostly graduate courses, some undergraduate, but I've had the opportunity to really see my own mistakes as well, which is another reason why I wanted to share this with you. So again, if you can imagine the scenario of, trying to cook your favorite meal at home and trying to cook it, out in an outdoor campsite, and just the changes that you would need to make to have that come to light. So the one thing I suggest before you even look at your Canvas site is that you deconstruct your course. So we're just going to talk about one course right now. Again, it doesn't matter if, like me, you're a language teacher, if you are a chemistry professor, it really doesn't matter what you teach. You need to think about how you can deconstruct your course. And I recommend that you get a set of old-fashioned note cards, yes, paper and pencil, old-fashioned note cards, a set of colored markers, and you walk yourself through your course, and you want to have one stack of cards that are just the assessments, and maybe you'll just write each of the major assessments you're trying to accomplish in your semester or term, whatever you're working with, and you're going to put those in a pile. That'll probably be the smallest pile, I think. And then you take a different color marker, and you're going to want to write down some of your major activities. For example, let's say that you have a major lab component because you're a chemistry professor, and you really need to, you want to do some recordings of yourself in a lab. So you're going to put those down, you're going to write those down also and put them in a pile on your cards. And I suggest you do this on your kitchen table, your dining room table, somewhere where you have a big space. And then you're going to take each aspect of your course, and you want to have it in these little groups. So try to not have more than, let's say, maybe 5 or 6 groups. And I'm going to show you why in just a minute. And pick out the most important things. You won't be able to do everything you did before. You should be able to get most of it done, but you might not be able to do it in as many tiny slices as what you used to do in person when you were fully in person, whether you're hybrid or you're fully online right now. You just need to think of things in slightly different ways. So deconstruct your class first. And then you have all of your different major activities and different tools that you have, and then you have that all in front of you. And what you're going to need to do is to figure out how your students will be able to get to what they need so that they end up with that delicious meal or whatever that great outcome will be in a slightly different manner. You're not going to replicate your class. It's going to be impossible for the most part. I know a lot of you, especially if you're teaching high school, you're going to end up with many hours on Zoom. And I'm sorry for that. That is not considered the best practices for online learning. The best practices are generally that students do not spend more than 2 hours a day, for example, on Zoom, and that you actually, you put probably 70% of your activities are things that they will do somewhat on their own. And I know you can't all do that if you're teaching high school. So once you rethink things, keep in mind that it's very important that you are hyper organized, very, very concise and very organized and very repetitive on your, I'm showing you Canvas, for example, on your Canvas site. and that you also have a lot of engagement. And I know that's difficult to think of right now, but you're probably finding that some things you did in the spring were very engaging, some things weren't. So you may need to just rethink a little bit how you're approaching that. And another suggestion before you get started is that you try, you might have had a lot of different tech tools or different websites you were going to in your class. Try to reduce that for your users to no more than 3 tools. I actually recommend 2 consistent tools, but 3 tools aside from your Canvas and obviously your Zoom or GoToMeeting, whatever you're using to broadcast your classes. I know you're using a lot of different things. And really just picking 2 really good tools that accomplish or that get you to something that you need to get to, that's going to be really helpful for you. And then lastly, something to think about is the fact that in online education, the best practices, which now have been researched for more than 20 years, show that you should not be lecturing when you have students online with you. You should be recording your lectures for students in chunks, really no more, depending on obviously the age group, but really in nothing longer than 20 minutes. And then you can actually use the quiz feature on Canvas, which I can also show you, to have them watch those on their own. And that way you're not talking at them while you're on your broadcast of your class, while you're in your live class. And again, this all depends on how often you're meeting with your students. My graduate students, I generally would meet with in 2 3-hour chunks during the week. So I'm only meeting with them for about 2 hours and 15 minutes online. And that is all, it's all discussion and interaction. I have different activities for them, of course, but you want to use that live session only as it should be interactive. It should be students speaking, students asking questions, whether you have a guest speaker and then they ask questions, but it really should not be an opportunity for you to just turn on your Zoom or your GoToMeeting and then just talk at your students. So that's going to be tough for some of you because I know that you are obligated by some of your schools to teach more hours than that. A lot of my former colleagues in a couple of different universities and in high schools, where I've also taught high school, have told me that they are obligated to be online 4 hours a week. So in that case, I suggest you also, use some of those tools at that time. I'm going to show you the setup of my Canvas. I find Canvas to be not the most user-friendly of learning management systems. It's really good. It was designed by graduate students at Stanford. They wanted to see the behind the scenes of when their teachers were making changes. And so they came up with Canvas. And obviously it's morphed a lot over the years. So what you want to have is you want to have some sort of a basic, like your home page, your landing page. And this is great for you to try to show some sort of an outline of your courses, something that's going to give them a little bit of an understanding of where you are. I like to use week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. Some people like to use the module approach where, you'll take them through a unit, or if you call those units. And that will depend on you. And also other people like, instead of week 1, week 2, week 3, they like to actually just put the dates in there, which is great, except then when you go to teach this course again and it pulls that old information forward, you're gonna have to change all the dates on those links. And for college, obviously, if your students have never met you, you may want to put, this is me and these are my two mentees that I'm teaching with right now. Then we give them an overview of the course, and then we talk about the course outcomes and some support resources. And then, of course, it's always nice if your students don't know you to film a little video of yourself. Just give them some basic background information. We also have a link where we have some more informal pictures of ourselves, and we talk about our hobbies and whatnot. And I suggest you start with the announcements as the first place they can go. If you're using, and really most any learning management system, the announcements are generally as close to the top as you can imagine. And in Canvas, you can sort of put those where you want. And the learning management system should be sending your students notifications when you post announcements. If they don't have that set, you may want to ask them to do that. And then you'll have your paper syllabus or whatever your institution requires. But the thing that's really important to show you is the assignments view that the students have. And at any point, by the way, in Canvas, you can go to show the what is actually the student view. So I'll show you that in a minute, but where you get to see things from the perspective of the student. And that is in, I believe every LMS probably has that by now. I've used quite a few and they have had that, and if you don't see it, write to them and ask them if they can implement that feature, because it's very important for you as an instructor to see what your students are seeing. So I wanted to show you what your students will see when they go into their assignment view. And consistency, again, consistency and engagement. Those are the two best practices that should be at the top of your mind when you set up your course. In this case, my students are English language learners, so they are doing listening activities, so that for input, for output. So those are on a consistent basis. And in my class, those are due every Monday morning. And they're due Monday, 9 o'clock in the morning. And it doesn't matter what the assignments are, whether you have a repetitive tool you're using, something like my publications are repetitive tool where they have episodes, different episodes that, where they continue to use them throughout the semester or the academic year, or whether you are posting those yourself on your LMS, but they should all be listed together and they should be consistent the way that they're listed, how many points they're worth, and the day that they're due. And again, I can't emphasize to you enough that the consistency and communication and clarity are so important for your learners, whether they are second language learners, whether they are high school students, middle school students, college students. It's the way they view what's happening in the class should be consistent and repetitive. And then I have, in my class, for example, I use a speaking tool, which is called Flipgrid. It's wonderful for really pretty much every subject matter. If you want to hear from your students and you want them to interact with you or each other in an asynchronous fashion, then you might want to check out Flipgrid. It was purchased recently by Microsoft and it is free to educators. And that was actually developed by a graduate professor. And so it's really applicable to absolutely all age ranges. And so again, we have a consistent task. Flipgrids are due every Tuesday and every Wednesday. There's one due on Tuesday, one due on Wednesday. So they have a video they listen to on Monday. They'll talk something about that on Tuesdays, and then on Wednesday they'll have like a critical thinking question that kind of connects a couple different things we're working on. And those throughout the entire semester are always going to be due at the same time on the same day. And then we have our live sessions, and you'll all have your live sessions at different times. But again, you'll want to list those. If you list them as assignments, I'm going to show you from a different view, but if you list them as assignments when your students go to the calendar, they should see those live sessions come up in the series of consistent and repetitive activities that are due essentially the same day, the same time, as much as you can. And if you can't figure out how to do that for your students, you may want to brainstorm with your educational technologists at your institution to help you figure out how you can make that happen, whether it's by posting lectures. Let's say you post a 20-minute lecture that's due to be watched on a Monday, and a 20-minute lecture that's due to be watched on a Wednesday, and a 20-minute lecture due to be watched on a Friday. Just make sure that you're consistent with it and you're showing all of those assignments in your Canvas. And one trick I will tell you before I continue is publish everything in advance. Here's where you publish it. You just check this little checkbox here. And if you're using a different LMS, it's always going to have a publish feature. If you publish your repetitive activities, even if they're empty on the inside and you're only posting the shell or the announcement, such as this is where it will be when you get to it, when the student sees the course from the student perspective and they see the calendar for the semester, it will be so much easier for them to understand what they're going to be doing, and to really to understand and to embrace and to just continue without being profoundly confused. So that's another little trick. Even if the actual assignment is empty, just put the title of it up and make sure that it's due consistently and that there are clear instructions, of course. And so then I have, for example, my live sessions are always on Fridays. I teach on Fridays. So I put all of their live sessions in ahead of time, so it shows up on their calendar. They get a certain number of points for participation in my classes. You know, you'll run your classes as you like. Participation and attendance are both very important to give points for in online classes. And then they also get an attendance grade, again, that comes up on their calendar consistently. I don't use the roll call attendance because it doesn't show on the calendar when we're having the live sessions. And your students will really they'll need to understand when those live sessions come up. And then I have presentations that are due in my classes. I've narrowed it down. I have 3 different types of presentations that each occurred twice, and they were due also on Fridays. They were always due consistently before class. So those are also listed all together. And even though the students did not get the actual assignment in advance because I didn't really want them to see it, what I published was sort of the shell for the assignment, which is the title of the assignment and how many points it's worth and whatnot. You don't need to actually load the information in the assignment. You can, every single time, you can just say, check back here, you know, later. You can just leave it blank. The students might ask you about it, but just having that for them as a resource to see, it's no different than just having, you know, like a book, for example, that they're looking through. And speaking of books, if you have book assignments for your students, be sure, again, that you always want them to be listed in your Canvas, and you want them to be due on consistent dates with consistent amounts of material. If you schedule, for example, if you have one day where you only have a couple of pages of reading due, and then you have another day where you have a 22-page article due, that's going to be very hard for students to get into the rhythm of understanding how your course is going to be moving. So try to be consistent. If you, the one thing that I'd like to do also for my students is if I have something that's a little bit more time consuming than the typical activities in that category, I will list the time. I will list the time in the title. And I know, for example, that when that occurs later in the semester, I know that it's going to take them a little bit more time. So I'll make sure that I put that in the title, what I'm calling the shell. I don't know what the LMSs call it other than that, but you know, this is your announcement. This is what's going to be coming. And even if you don't fill the information in, you might want to tell them this is a 22-page article. It will take you approximately this much time. Or if you are having students prepare any kind of presentation or anything they'll be doing that's a little bit out of the ordinary, you want to make sure that you let them know that in advance. And if you teach adult learners, you know that it's very important for them to understand the why of the assignment. I think that's very helpful with high school students as well. So another good place to put that is right inside the assignment, and tell them why they're doing it, what it connects to, what the goal of the assignment is, you know, what you're looking for in that. And so I have all my major assessments in a category at the end. And even if your major assessments are different types of activities, one would be a presentation, one would be a reflection, one would be a paper, one would be some kind of a test, you will want to put those all in one section together because those are their major assessments. And so by putting things in categories like this and putting it at the top, the name of the category, let's say major assessments, or you can call them major assignments, whatever. And I put down for them the day that it's due. And I give them as much information in advance at the beginning of the semester as I can without even giving them the actual assignment. And then I publish everything so that they can see the layout of the course. If you only release things when you publish them, your students at all levels will be very confused, and you'll find that you will have a lot more questions to answer. You'll get so much more email, and that's just going to be really much more difficult for them. So group things together, have consistent dates that they're due, and try to minimize a little bit the number of tools that you use. You can see from my site that I have, I do listening quizzes with some kind of a video, and that's consistently due on Mondays. I use Flipgrid for speaking opportunities due on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I've previously also used VoiceThread. One day I had a Flipgrid due, another day a VoiceThread. Any tools you're using, whether you, again, your chemistry teacher, you want them to go to a certain site to watch something, lump those together in categories for them and let them know what percentage of your grade those count as, and be sure that those are due always on the same day. And then if your participation attendance, whatever it is, your live sessions, again, put everything up and post it, even if it doesn't hold anything, so that they can see. And you want to include your live sessions in there because they will see those come up on the calendar. So there's a calendar view that they will look at. And then there's also, there's the student view, which you should keep looking at everything in your student view, which every website has that, or every LMS, sorry, learning management system, shows that in a different place. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to go back to my my site. Sometimes it acts funny when you're on a presentation tool. So if you have Canvas, or I believe if you're using Finalsite, it's on the right at the bottom. I'm forgetting a few of the other ones, but right here you'll see student view, and you're going to click on that. And that's going to help you see things from the student perspective, whether they go into the calendar view or whether they go into the assignment view. I'm going to show you what I was just showing you a few minutes ago from the assignment view. If you post everything at the beginning, even if it's just, again, announcing the title and how many points, even if you don't know the dates, you can estimate the dates and go back and change them. Excuse me. It's very helpful for students to be able to see that. And then if you want to go into the calendar view, which I'm not going to show you my students' calendar view because I don't want to show you. I'm going to leave the student view right now. But if students look at it in the calendar view, it comes up and it's so overwhelmingly helpful for them. A couple other things to tell you about the best practices for online learning. If you are using a tool like Zoom, which I'm obviously using right now to share this with you. If you're using a tool like Zoom, try to record your lectures in advance, or any assignments that have a lot of instructions. And then you can just post all those little links inside your learning management system. So let's say, for example, you have a unique assignment that's included in your major assessments area, and it just needs a 10-minute explanation of how that's going to work. Especially, I think if you teach college, you're going to need things like that. Make sure that you're using your Zoom, and instead of saving it to your computer, you'll want to save it to the cloud, and you'll get a share link for that. And you'll get a personal link and a share link. You want to choose the share link, and then you can post that right in your Canvas. And if your videos are too long and cumbersome and you can't share them as well, a lot of your universities and probably a lot of your high schools have something that's a backup tool that stores video. And so if you are creating videos, if you're a physics teacher and you're outside with your phone and you're like, you know, doing the cool things that you do when you're a physics teacher, throwing baseballs, doing whatever, and you're recording a video, you may need to ask your school if they have a backup. They will have something, and you just may need to use that tool and then post the link from that. So you'll all have different types of licenses and different agreements, but just keep in mind that if you're making a lot of your own videos, that's something that you'll want to be checking out in advance. So I hope that's a little bit helpful for you. If you're using the discussions, be sure that you show the link to the discussion from your main area where your main assignments are. You cannot over communicate in online teaching enough. And that I teach a lot of second language learners, whether it be international students learning English or Spanish. And it's very important that you over communicate. And you know, we have a lot of students who have learning challenges, and we just have a lot of students who are profoundly confused by all of the materials we're putting out. So in order to eliminate the constant number of emails that students are sending back and forth, and when you have a learning management system, you can post links from all your different areas inside of your learning management system. And they all, you know, of course, interconnect with each other. So don't be afraid to do that. Students are not going to laugh at you for being repetitive. And if they are, then I really don't know why they would do that. But students also get very confused in the discussion area. And you might just tell them to go to discussion, but then they look at it and it's super confusing. So it's always very helpful for them if you over post those links. Don't just say go to discussion, just post the actual link to the exact assignment, and they'll be very grateful for that. If you are lucky to have a learning management system that also allows you to kind of collect your files, for example, Canvas does do that. You can put all of your files in at the beginning. So much easier if you know everything you're going to be teaching. It's great to do that. If you're lucky enough to do that, then put your files in at the beginning, and that's super helpful as well. You can post all of your rubrics on your learning management system. Schoology has a wonderful system for using rubrics, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with. But just remember to try to pare down the quantity of different things that you're doing. In a regular semester, you might do, you know, 20 different things, different tools, different textbooks, different types of websites. Just try to pare that down significantly for your students, and you will not go crazy in the process. So I hope this has been a little bit helpful for you. I'm sure I've left out a couple of major things. If you have any questions, I think that you can ask the person that you got this from, who or what my email is, and they'll share it with you. And I'll be happy to answer personal emails as well, if I can help you, you know, to move your class into a hybrid or purely online format. Just, you know, don't hesitate to ask the person who sent this to you if they can give you my email. So I hope that's helpful, and good luck. And again, just try to remember, you know, you've got to start by deconstructing your class, and it will not be helpful if you try to replicate what you did before and then just turn on the, you know, the camera tool if you're using Zoom or GoToMeeting. It just will be very helpful for your students if you use your learning management system to its fullest. If your school does not have a learning management system and they are expecting you to teach online or hybrid, that's a major issue. There are some free ones. Moodle is actually free. It's M-O-O-D-L-E. It's open source, and it's actually really quite good. It's been around for a very long time. If you have not seen it lately, it's definitely advanced. So check that out. And obviously, you know, Google has a lot of functions, but always talk to your tech team members. Especially if you're in a high school or in middle school, you want to make sure that the tools you use are approved by your tech team. So good luck, and I hope you have a great semester of teaching in a hybrid way. Take care. So this is a continuation, just for a few extra minutes for those of you who are only using Canvas. I wanted to show you two very specific Canvas features that I think will be very helpful to you. I'd like to show you how Canvas, what Canvas looks like from the student view from the calendar, and I want to show you how to embed a video into a quiz. Those are two easy things that will make your classes just so much more helpful. So you will want to go into the student view in Canvas, or I mean, you can use this in any LMS, but it's very helpful then to go into the course calendar, and that way you can see all of the tasks that you have scheduled are coming up, and they should be coming up in pretty consistent form. And this way your students will see so much better, because remember, they're going to be seeing a lot of classes when they pull up. They have different views, they can look at different calendars, but you want them to see everything to be nice and organized, rather than trying to see things that are just disjointed. You know, you might have like a video due one day and a book assignment due another day, and then, you know, something from the library another day. But what you really want to do is you want to set up these consistent, clear, and repetitive tasks. So that's what that looks like. I'm going to go out of the student view right now, and I'm going to show you how to put in a quiz. So this would be, I'm sorry, to put in a video and a quiz. So this would be if you're filming your own video for any kind of a class, or if you're like me and you're a language teacher and you're using, you are using a video program, or you're using, you know, whatever you're using, it doesn't really matter, but you go into the quizzes, which I actually have hidden from my students because I only want my students to see the quizzes through the assignments. And again, that's just the way that you can give them these repetitive tasks over and over again is by showing them things through the assignments. I'm going to actually just go into one of my quizzes. So this is a new feature in Canvas, and thankfully it came out just in time. I put the directions to my listening quizzes, and of course telling them things like always use the earbuds, the headphones, and this can be a quiz that you've made yourself, it doesn't matter. And then I have them click here to watch their quiz. So I've added that quiz right in with the instructions. It's taking my students to a different tool where I've been storing some video. I'm actually, it's an entrepreneurship vocabulary class for international students. So I'm having them listen to something from Shark Tank, and I had them watch that video and listen to it. And then I have a graded quiz for them, which has been set up. But all you have to do is just put the link right here, whether it's a link to one of your homemade videos, or it's a link to a video that you're using on YouTube, or wherever you're getting it from. You will just put it right in here when you do the when you set up the instructions. And then of course you use this little guy right here. That's going to be to help you put in the link, and you use that little function right there. You can also go right to YouTube if you want to. There's a lot of different, oops, sorry, I did not want to open that. There's a lot of different things you can do. And then you will put the quiz answers down here. You will just start your quizzes. You'll either shuffle the answers, you'll give a time limit, you'll allow multiple attempts, which I personally don't allow multiple attempts, but if they're not doing it as an assessment, you should click that, of course. They can see the correct answers if you want them to. Canvas has a little bit of an overload when it comes to that, and it will probably take you a few fails to get everything set correctly. There are a lot of them, and then to do the release. And then you start to add your questions. And from there on, it's pretty intuitive. You just choose, you show which one is the right answer. But you can just put the links right inside here. And if it's your own video, again, you're probably going to need to store that on a video store tool. My university uses Kaltura. A lot of people use that. There are others, so you just want to make sure that you're putting it right there. And just a warning, if you're using things from like YouTube or Vimeo, or there are a lot of other sources, of course, but your students may not be able to see the videos, and that is likely not going to be a problem with the way you've set it up. It would be a filter that their parents have at home, if you're, obviously, if you're a high school student, or let's say you're college, I'm sorry, if you're a high school teacher, if you're a college teacher, you may still have students who are working from home who also cannot access video because they have younger siblings in the house, and the parents may have some filters set up. So that would be one of the most common reasons why a student can't see your video, but other students can. So I hope those are helpful to you, and good luck on your semester. I hope it goes well. Thank you for watching.